one for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Monday, September 19th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 11 degrees, 12 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley.
Remembering Queen Elizabeth.
The Queen's casket has been removed from the gun carriage that took her from Westminster Abbey to Wellington Arch in Hyde Park. It was then loaded onto a hearse for the trip to Windsor Castle. Here is that moment as described by City News special correspondent Lisa LaFlamme and Jenny Bond.
We'll see a royal salute and the national anthem will be played here as the hearse moves out, leaves London on its way to Windsor Castle.
London being really the centre of monarchy, this is quite a profound moment, actually, that this is really the last journey, that she is leaving her seat, her royal seat, and going home.
Born a block from here, really.
So the Princess Royal accompanying her mother again, every step of the way.
Is that her husband or the king?
What a responsibility it's been for Princess Anne, from Balmoral to Edinburgh, back to London, and now to Windsor.
Our coverage of the day continues on City TV, or you can watch at ottawa.citynews.ca for a couple of more hours. There will be a private ceremony at Windsor Castle involving members of the royal family before the coffin of Queen Elizabeth II and her husband, Prince Philip, are interned together. More on the Ottawa ceremonies coming up, but first, your forecast. And here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
The rain, at times heavy for us today, could collect another 15 millimeters of rain, but more for areas that get into some isolated storms. 15 for the high. That's it. More showers tonight near 12 and showers tomorrow morning 17. For today, the high 15.
And right now in Ottawa, 11 degrees. It's 12 degrees in Smiths Falls. Well, this is not the end of the ceremonies to honor the late Queen. Here's City News reporter Prushka Gobalkista and the events marking her funeral in Ottawa.
At 12:10 p.m., RCMP and Canadian Armed Forces will march in the parade, which starts at Cartier Square Drill Hall before making its way to the Christchurch Cathedral on Spark Street. The service, starting at 1 p.m., is an invitation-only service where government officials and people with close ties to the Queen are expected to attend. Now also happening is a 96 gunshot salute, which will also take place, one for each year of the Queen's life, as well as an aircraft fly past. Now, these shots will be fired from a secure area on the Breton Flats, lasting around 16 minutes at the end of the service. Now, as for road closures, expect to see many of those, as many streets will be closed off to vehicle traffic. Special parking signs are in place with different restrictions, and residents are still welcome to walk around those areas if they wish to attend the parade. Perushka Gopalkista, City News.
City News time, 9:03. The province expected to make funding decisions for long COVID strategy in the very near future. Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kieran Moore, says health officials are working to create standard definitions and treatment protocols for long COVID. Experts, though, have said the prevalence of long COVID in the population could be anywhere ranging from 2% to 54%. And Major General Danny Fortin's sexual assault trial scheduled to begin at a Gatineau courthouse this morning. The trial comes more than a year after the senior military officer was abruptly removed as head of the federal government COVID-19 vaccine campaign back in May of 2021. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, a Monday morning like few can ever remember. And welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. We have been offering you multi-platform coverage of the funeral for Queen Elizabeth II here on City News since the early hours of the morning. Our coverage ongoing, anchored from London by legendary broadcaster Lisa LaFlamme. Let's listen in here. This is live on City News from London right now.
We did not realize, because I think that was the most incredible piece of genius during the Jubilee celebrations, which it's hard to believe that was just 3 months ago. And I want to actually now, as we're seeing the procession move toward Windsor, we will go to Windsor because Tammy Sutherland is there. She's been there all morning, sort of getting a sense of how crowds are building for what is coming your way. Tammy, if you can hear me, give me a sense, if you can, where you are near the castle and what is the scene.
Lisa, it's hard to describe from the ground just how many people are here right now. Thousands and thousands of people are gathered here, just lining the long walk. That is the pathway up to Windsor Castle, and this is going to be one of the final routes that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth's hearse will take once it arrives here in Windsor. And so many people want to be here to watch that history unfold later today, including a family here that has come down from about an hour away. Rob, you came down. You have a career in the military. Tell me about that.
I served 13 years in the Army, joined in 1994, and then, been 13 years under Her Majesty's services. So I joined when I was a young boy at 16, and I signed Queen Elizabeth's Declaration of Oath, basically. Yeah.
And so this meant so much to you to be here.
Yep. Yeah.
What was it like being here and watching the service among all of these people who've come to pay their respects?
It's quite surprising, a lot of people here. You know, it's not emotional, very emotional, because, Her Majesty's Services is obviously quite big, and she did quite a lot for the royal family, and she did obviously a lot for the armed forces, being for the Queen. Yeah.
And the armed forces expected to line part of
our City News coverage. We'll be bringing you that here and there throughout the Rob Snow Show this morning. The funeral service itself is over now, and the casket is making its final tour to Her Majesty's final resting place, and we'll be bringing you the sounds of that all morning long. We will be keeping you right up to date with the help of our newsroom on everything that's happening here in Ottawa as well. There is the ceremony today at Christ Church Cathedral in Ottawa starting at 1 o'clock. There's the memorial parade beginning shortly after noon, the noon hour, and that is going to have an impact on local traffic. You can find all the details, road closures, detours, ottawa.citynews.ca. And then there's the flypast over Parliament Hill by the CF-18s of the Royal Canadian Air Force. So a very eventful day. That includes events here in Ottawa. And for some, the weather will capture the mood, I suppose. There is a special weather statement in effect because of all the rain, which is not really expected to actually move out of the region until sometime tomorrow afternoon. It is a soggy few days to begin the work week. The funeral for the Queen is not the only story that we'll be getting into today. We'll also be talking about the municipal election at some length this morning, and we'll be touching on federal politics as well. The House of Commons is set to return this week. The Prime Minister is not expected in the House of Commons when it resumes. The Prime Minister's itinerary has him leaving London at 8 p.m. London time, bound for New York City, where Prime Minister Trudeau will attend the United Nations General Assembly. That will keep him in New York until the 22nd, which is Thursday. And while there, the Prime Minister, according to the PMO, will, quote, highlight Canada's leadership on climate action and nature protection, as well as build global momentum on key policies like pollution pricing. Pollution pricing is, that's Trudeau talk for the carbon tax. That's what pollution pricing is. That means carbon tax. So it is very likely that there will not be any kind of Pierre Poilievre versus Justin Trudeau fireworks in the House of Commons this week. If that's something you had marked on your calendar, I hate to disappoint. There is a new federal poll out today. Federal political poll, given Poilievre's big win in the Conservative Party's leadership race. It's a poll from Abacus Data, and it has the overall race looking like this. Conservatives, 35. Liberals, 30. New Democrats, 17. The Bloc is at 9, and then the Greens and the People's Party are both at 4. But a 5-point lead for the Conservatives. And regionally, for example, in Ontario, just take Ontario, for example. The Conservatives would love to do better in Ontario. A lot better than they've done in the last 3 elections. Abacus data has the Conservatives up by 4 points. Conservatives 38, Liberals 34, NDP 19. And in Quebec, focus on Ontario and Quebec. That's where all the seats are. Win Ontario and Quebec, you win the election. In Quebec, it's the Bloc. That's the story. Bloc with a big lead over the Liberals, 7-point lead. Bloc 37, Liberals 30, Conservatives 19. Negative impressions of the Prime Minister, 48%. Negative impressions of Pierre Poilievre, 34%. Oh, just give it time, some will say. Just give it time. The only reason Poilievre's negatives aren't higher, Abacus says, is because Conservatives really, really like Poilievre and everyone else doesn't. We'll get into some of the federal political plot lines today with the House of Commons resuming action tomorrow. That's as we make our way through the day. We're here until noon. There's lots to cover. Also in the mix, as I said, the municipal election. Just 35 days to go now. It'll be here before you know it. 35 days to go until Election Day here in the city of Ottawa. And there are lots of issues to talk about. We had the poll out last week from Main Street Research. That's the second time that polling firm has done a survey on our municipal election, and it showed a big lead for Councillor Catherine McKenney, 14-point lead over Mark Sutcliffe. And you have to think, we're getting down to sprint to the finish line time with a little more than a month to go, and Labor Day now way off in the rearview mirror. One of the big events on the McKenney campaign calendar this week is a climate rally. That will happen on a chilly Friday of this week. The frontrunner will release more details about their plan, quote, for a greener, healthier, and better connected Ottawa. Last week, the Sutcliffe campaign released its housing plan, 100,000 new housing units over 10 years. But look, the buzz is that the Sutcliffe campaign is having a hard time getting out in front of this fundraising controversy. I don't even view it as being very controversial, but some people do. This idea that some people are hosting events featuring Mark Sutcliffe, and the fee is a $1,200 donation to the Sutcliffe campaign. Mark Sutcliffe was with me last week on the Rob Snow Show. I asked him about this. You're being accused of doing cash for access, and he said that's preposterous. So anyway, coming up a little later on our show is Bob Chiarelli. The Main Street poll that was out last week at the Bob Chiarelli campaign, it's in third place. It was up by a few points. It went from 7% to 11% support. But Bob Chiarelli wants to stop this Tailwind development, which has always been controversial from the very first time it was revealed. It's about 1,300 hectares, huge undertaking by the Algonquins of Ontario and Taggart, included in the official plan, and Bob Chiarelli doesn't think it should be. He doesn't think it should be part of the official plan. And among his concerns is one that was often expressed as this was making its way through City Hall, and that's the cost to bring city services out to that area. I mean, it's kind of far out there. If you think about it on a map, it's it's out near that big Amazon distribution center off of the 417. That area. Well, what's it cost to bring city services out there? You're going to have a police station, a fire station, paramedics. Of course, you have to have green bins, right? OC Transpo, let alone everything that goes underground, all of that stuff. So we'll get into this later in the show when we're joined by candidate for Mayor Bob Chiarelli. And we'll do the Talkback Hour. We do the Talkback Hour every morning between 10 and 11 o'clock at 750-1310. And today, I mean, the Queen. I mean, it's the biggest story in the world, the Queen. And this, history in the making, the Queen being laid to rest. It's the end of an era. It really is. You hear that phrase used often enough, but it actually applies this time. This is the end of an era. The funeral is expected to be the most watched television event in history. Like 4 billion people are expected to watch this on television today. The crowd in London, maybe 1 million people, filled with pomp and pageantry. But the service itself, somber and deeply Christian. And, we can talk about your impressions of the service, but this is the culmination of 10 days of mourning in the UK. And it's been all over the news here in this country, in the United States as well. All the cable news networks in the United States are covering this. And for some, you've had time to think about this woman now over the last week and a half, the Queen. But we know from polling that for others, no connection at all to today's event whatsoever. And lots of people think it's all a bit much and a bit over the top. So what I want to know this morning to kind of get the conversation going during the Talkback Hour is words or phrases that come to mind when you think about the Queen. Words or phrases that come to mind when you think about the Queen. And what do you think of the news coverage of the last week and a half? The news coverage by the media. I have my own impressions. I think the coverage is totally newsworthy, given what a constant figure she was on the world stage for 70 years. But that's just my opinion. I want to know yours. That's why we do the Talkback Hour at 750-1310, right after the 10 o'clock news on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Closed captioning is brought to you in part by Raven Reads. Unbox Indigenous voices. Subscribe today at ravenreads.org.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Your visit isn't really necessary.
I'll judge for myself.
I know you're an MP, Miss McPhail, but a woman has never...
I am not leaving till I do.
How can such a society be called civilized? If those appalling conditions don't change, that prison will explode!
Perhaps our lone lady member is too fragile to know what is normal in a prison.
Is this normal?
Her courage would lead to the overhaul of the entire Canadian penal system. Agnes McPhail, Canada's first woman MP.
Flooding is causing widespread devastation in Pakistan. More than 1,000 people have died. 1/3 of the country is underwater, and 6 million people are in need of emergency assistance. The humanitarian coalition is responding to the crisis in Pakistan. You can help. Donate today at together.ca, and your donation will be matched by the Canadian government. That's together.ca, the humanitarian coalition. Together, saving more lives.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
That's the way I kill. My skill still shopping, cause I've been here sharpening.
What's going on, y'all? It's Jay Morris, aka your favorite light skin, and you're gonna check out my performance on Encore Ottawa 3 coming up this week. Let's go.
All again, murderation, 911, call it in. Neon murder every.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Queen Elizabeth was married and crowned, we gather from across the nation, from the Commonwealth, and from the nations of the world, to mourn our loss, to remember her long life of selfless service, and in sure confidence to commit her to the mercy of God, our Maker and Redeemer.
Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father, but by me. If ye had known me, ye should have known my Father also, and from henceforth ye know him, and have seen him. Philip saith unto him, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. Jesus saith unto him, Have I been so long time with you, and yet hast thou not known me, Philip? He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. Thanks be to God.
Many leaders is to be exalted in life and forgotten after death. The pattern for all who serve God, famous or obscure, respected or ignored, is that death is the door to glory. Her late Majesty famously declared on a 21st birthday broadcast that her whole life would be dedicated to serving the nation and Commonwealth. Rarely has such a promise been so well kept. Few leaders receive the outpouring of love that we have seen.
9:23 on the Rob Snow Show. This is City News. Some of the highlights from the funeral service were Queen Elizabeth II. Reporting on it this morning here for City News Ottawa has been Andrew Boyle throughout the morning. Your thoughts on what we've heard and seen, Andrew Boyle?
Well, it was surprisingly short, an hour-long church service, which to me, I thought it was going to be at least an hour and a half, maybe even a little bit longer than that, but it was poignant, it was regal, it was so well organized, and I know the organization for an event like this probably began decades ago. when you plan an event like this for a monarch's funeral. And the Queen herself apparently had a lot to do with the actual planning of it and what she wanted said, and biblical verses and
hymns and whatnot. Yes,
exactly. That was all her doing, and I'm just absolutely flabbergasted by how smoothly that whole event went on. You basically shut down one of the largest cities in the world, and there hasn't been a single problem reported.
And the security that must be in place to put on an event like this.
Well, when the mayor of London says this is the Olympics, this is every major event that's happened in London combined. That's how big this event was for the 3 police services that are in London, have jurisdictions in London. Just this massive undertaking to make sure everything was fine. And when you watch the casket leave the church and head past Buckingham Palace on its way to Windsor Castle, I mean, the space that they had opened for them was amazing. Earlier this morning, they actually cut off the crowd, said, please, no one else come anywhere along this route because there's simply no room for you anymore. Incredible. No pushing, no shoving, it was a marvel to watch.
Yes. And no reported problems so far.
Well, that we've heard of.
We've heard of, which means nothing major, which is quite significant. Can you imagine if you get 1 to 2 million people lining this route? It's incredible. One of the words that has been used has been constant. Another one is continuity. And that was one thing that struck me listening to the service, that this funeral service is taking place in Westminster Abbey, where she was crowned, where she was married, and now where her funeral service is being held. I was struck by that for some reason.
Yeah, the significance of that building in her life alone.
Yes.
And what we've witnessed over the years, either through picture or film, or if you're lucky enough walking by it or even in it, it was really quite remarkable. And the way that this has all been laid out is a marvel in itself. To me, the fact that it's basically been seamless. The king now takes over from the queen. The coronation won't be held for about a year, giving plenty of time to...
Oh, really? It's going to be about a year?
That's the last word I heard was, yes, the coronation should be sometime next summer. And that will give now King Charles III plenty of time to sort of put his early mark on a monarchy under his rule.
Andrew Boyle is coming up with the news. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The houseless crisis, because it really is a crisis down here on Rideau Street. There is not enough shelters for men especially, and we need to be helping our most vulnerable.
One in 3 fatalities on our waterways is caused by impaired boating. Don't boat impaired.
$20. Hi, I'm Maggie. Come into my kitchen. When you're using salt in a recipe, check for saltiness. Not all salts are equal. A fine grain salt is a lot more salty than a large grain salt because that takes longer to get into the food. Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Next time on Simply Cooking by Chef, I'm sharing some of my Italian family secrets. Come join me and see what they are while I prepare a traditional Italian pork feast.
And weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Monday, September 19th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 11 degrees, Smiths Falls 12. Here's what's making news this hour. The funeral for Queen Elizabeth II is over, finishing with a lament played by the Queen's Piper. That brought the service to a close. In a country known for pomp and pageantry, the first state funeral since Winston Churchill's was filled with spectacle. Royal Navy sailors drew the gun carriage carrying Elizabeth's coffin to Westminster Abbey. King Charles III and his sons, Prince William and Harry, walking behind as bagpipers played. The Queen's coffin now on its way to Windsor Castle. She will be buried alongside her husband, Prince Philip. Now, there is still a ceremony around the noon hour in Ottawa. This will start with a parade and a service to be held at Christ Church Cathedral on Sparks. There will also be a flyover of CF-18s around the noon hour and a moment of silence at 1 o'clock. Ontario is expected to make the funding decision for long COVID strategy in the very near future. The Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Ciarelli Moore, says health officials are working to create a standard definition and treatment protocol for anyone suffering from long COVID. As far as how many people are suffering from that illness is not known. The guesstimate is anywhere from 2 to 54%. City News Time, 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Almighty God, Father of all mercies and giver of all comfort, deal graciously, we pray thee, with those who mourn, that casting every care on thee, they may know the consolation of thy love. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Let us pray for His Majesty the King and all the royal family, that they may know the sustaining power of God's love and the prayerful fellowship of God's people. Almighty God, the fountain of all goodness, we humbly beseech thee to bless our most gracious sovereign Lord, King Charles, Camilla, the Queen Consort, William, Prince of Wales, and all the royal family. Endure them with thy Holy Spirit, enrich them with thy heavenly grace, prosper them with all happiness, and bring them to thine everlasting kingdom, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
In recognition of Queen Elizabeth's service to this United Kingdom, let us rejoice in her unstinting devotion to duty, her compassion for her subjects, and her counsel to her ministers. And we pray for the continued health and prosperity of this nation. Almighty God, whose will it is that all thy children should serve thee in serving one another, look with love, we pray thee, on this nation. Grant to its citizens grace to work together with honest and faithful hearts each caring for the good of all, that seeking first thy kingdom and its righteousness, they may possess all things needful for their daily sustenance and the common good. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
9:35 on the Rob Snow Show. If you weren't up early, part of what it sounded like for the Queen's funeral, the funeral for Queen Elizabeth II, as we welcome back from Transformational Leadership Consultants, our weekly contributor, Barry McLoughlin. Good morning, Barry McLoughlin.
Good morning, Rob.
And I know you were up. You were up. I know you and Laura wouldn't miss something like this. So.
No, well, you know, it's of course it is a once in a lifetime kind of experience for sure. I vaguely recall actually the first international satellite coverage of Winston Churchill's funeral. I was a child, but I remember seeing it, and they put his coffin on a boat down the Thames, and it was quite a spectacular one of its day. This one, of course, is beyond anything we've ever seen before.
Yeah. I wanted to include those three specific audio clips because it's not going unnoticed that there were three passages and prayers that were recited by women during this funeral service. A lot of people are making note of that. Probably didn't happen the last time there was a funeral like this.
Including Liz Truss, the new UK Prime Minister. Yeah, I mean, of course, you know, as the most powerful woman in the world, really, in terms of somebody holding that position, quite spectacular in a way. I think Liz Truss herself has said that, you know, for you know, that opened the door. I think other previous Theresa May is one who said that, boy, when she became, I think that's the first, the second British female Prime Minister, that having the Queen, you know, invite her to form a government was quite something, and it really said a lot about the position of women in society. So obviously a very positive sign in every way.
Yep. Duty and service, two words that come to mind. And, you know, speaking of that, and Liz Truss, who, as you mentioned, is the new UK Prime Minister, invited to form a government. And that was just 2 days before the Queen's passing. So duty and service right up until the end, Barry. Yeah. Right up until the very end.
Right, and that was a bit of a, you know, it's funny, not funny, but it's interesting that we had all known when you get to 96, it's only a question of, you know, time, and yet we were all taken aback because there was the Queen 2 days before doing her duty, doing a high-profile thing like that, and then 2 days later it died. Like it was a sudden twist at the end, very sad one, and I think it did take people off guard, and I think people, including myself, were surprised at the emotions they had about it. You know, you would think, well, okay, you know, we get it. But really, there was an emotional impact. I think part of it is that the Queen's reign is what we all remember, and it was so interwoven with so many times of our life, people that we've known over the years, and you can't disconnect it from your own life in that way. Her life was interwoven, especially in Canada. She was a very strong presence in Canada.
Yeah. So your impressions of the ceremony, the procession, the crowds. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I think nobody does the processions like the British. It was just unbelievable, like beautifully choreographed, wonderfully done. That was one major thing that we've all witnessed so much of. I think King Charles, his ability right from the get-go to play the role, to go to Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales and to greet all the leaders and everything, he didn't take a minute of a breather to personally mourn, really.
No.
It was quite amazing to watch him. The resurrection of Prince Andrew, if one might say, wow, there he was, you know, chest, you know, bursting with pride, walking down, you know. A lot of people have to roll their eyeballs on this one.
Yeah. That won't last. I don't think that's going to last, though.
No, I don't think so.
He'll be back in exile after.
Yeah, so that was sort of an odd thing, sort of a black mark of the whole thing. Nothing you could really do about that, I guess. But no, and I think there were all these subtexts there, but I think that really what amazed me was how touched people were on a personal, emotional basis, came from all over the world and so on. I didn't quite expect that. I mean, we all thought it would be a reaction, but this is so beyond what we normally would recognize. And so I think that it says a lot about what the Queen has done over so many decades, and how really I think people, the word I would use is admired her. She wasn't a soft, warm, cuddly person. She was really somebody that we admired and respected, and took the country through many decades. And even as a princess, they were working as a mechanic, during the war. Yeah. Quite a life she led. And boy, to somebody to have led a life like that for so long, yes, we're sad, but really one has to celebrate a life like that.
Okay. Let's move on to some other things. Pierre Poilievre wins big. We talked about that last week, but now I want to know your impressions of his first week as we are on the eve of the resumption of the House of Commons.
Well, it's clear that he has total control over his caucus. He's selected his front line. So there'll be, I think, quite a bit of unity in that for the first time in a number of years. And put Andrew Scheer out there, government house leader, and so on. So he's been able to kind of heal whatever maybe ruffled feathers there might have been or whatever. That's very strong, very impressive in that sense. He did do a tussle with the media there, or David Aiken. It was an odd kind of thing that occurred.
Yeah.
I think that could have been done with a bit more humor and light touch. It came down as kind of a harsh thing against the media and, the usual suspects kind of thing. I don't think that's necessary, and it sure won't bode well for him if he's going to continue that,
Okay.
He doesn't need to follow that route, you know what I mean?
Okay.
It is true that...
It's interesting you put it that way. When I put it to my listeners, who would be, I think, more sympathetic to the Conservative Party and Poilievre, even they thought he should have kind of taken the higher road, if you will. Kind of try to rise above that kind of stuff.
That's right. I think your first option should never be the low road. In fact, you should rarely go there.
Okay.
But, we'll give him his he's in the position. I think the real test will be this week. Like, what does he put in the, what does he lead off question period with?
Yeah.
I mean, clearly people are concerned. He's really made this caucus speech about inflation, the affordability issue, and I think that is his big drumbeat. How he, what he is proffering, like what is his solution to all this? Should the Bank of Canada stop raising rates to slow down, come in for a soft landing in the economy? We need to hear what that prescription is. You got to be careful, because for every shot you take, there's an easy counterpunch. So you have to be very, when you line up questions for question period, you've got to think them all the way through,
Yeah.
It just takes a quick wisecrack by Trudeau. Well, maybe we'll pay it in Bitcoin, ha, ha, ha. Then, boom, So you have to think it all the way through, the attack points that he's preparing to make.
Well, he may want to keep his powder dry because Trudeau leaves London and goes to New York for the United Nations General Assembly and quite likely won't be in the House this week.
Yeah, so, I heard that he may come back for Thursday. But anyway, either way, he can take a few days. He doesn't have to come out there gangbusters. But I think almost all new opposition leaders want to show they have the chops in the position. So there'll be something, and there'll be a big applause line on the Conservative caucus, and we'll see what he chooses to do. I think within a week of the Queen's passing and funeral and so on, that he has to be a little careful. Trudeau, I think, has done a very good job globally on this, and so coming out there with the hatchet, I don't think is the best move in the world.
All right, 35 days to go in this municipal election campaign. You've made it no secret you're supporting Mark Sutcliffe, right? You want him to be the next mayor of Ottawa. Mm-hmm. The latest poll, however, shows a 14-point lead for the McKenney campaign. Catherine McKenney in the lead by 14 points. There's been some controversy about these events, fundraising events, $1,200. come meet Mark Sutcliffe. What do you think of this controversy, please?
Well, I think it's a kind of a made-up one by Horizons Ottawa, which is this shadowy organization that won't reveal where it's getting its funding. They had on their website that they would take up to $2,500, and when that was pointed out, there's only a $1,200 maximum. Oops, we didn't notice that. I mean, really, they got to come clean where they're getting their money from and who's backing them. That's point number one. Point number two, it's the equivalent of 8 ridings, federally, provincially, and it costs a lot of money to run a mail-to race. You got to run the equivalent of 8 ridings, and I think if somebody wants to hold a fundraiser and suggest a price for it, that's up to people to decide if they can do that or pay less. So I understand that people paid significantly less than that. So I think that in the end, I think that it's we don't know what. What's the maximum that Catherine McKenney is going to exceed? Is she going to accept a $1,200 donation?
I don't think the McKenney campaign would turn down $1,200.
Well,
I mean, the limit, the fundraising limit is give or take $600,000 to run the mayor's campaign.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
You got to raise a lot of money.
You got to raise a lot of money. So I think that it's much ado about nothing. I think it boils down to what people really expect in terms of how do you lead this? How do you lead this city? How do you bring people together, united around some pretty significant issues? Housing, I think, is such a huge issue. Transit, affordability. These are the big issues. And I think Mark has done a very good job of laying out, each week he lays out a very major plank and goes into great depth about each of his positions. And I think that's what people want to see, like what tangibly do you stand for? And then they'll make the decisions on that. And by the way, 14 points, after being in the field for, 9 months, closing it to 14 points is pretty good.
Yeah.
We still have...
Well, I'd be interested to know if are the Sutcliffe supporters worried about a vote split? That poll had, if you take the Sutcliffe support and the Chiarelli support, it would have been 31. McKenney's at 34. There's a vote split happening there.
Well, I don't think that's really
and
what
whether Bob Chiarelli's going to be the spoiler,
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I think that, in the end, they'll have 3 different positions with 3 different offerings, and to make their mind up. I don't think the Sutcliffe campaign is seeing this as sort of 2 against 1 or whatever. I don't think so at all. I think that, in the end, people are going to decide who leads us forward for the next 4 to 8 years. I think that's really important.
Okay.
And it's going to take strong leadership and a cool head and the ability to work with people to make it all work.
Thank you, Barry McLoughlin.
My pleasure.
We'll speak next week from Transformational Leadership Consultants. That's Barry McLoughlin. Money Mondays with Peter Fraser next on City News.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by local authors for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
I did it. I need it.
Here, I gave it.
And I am alive.
As an organ donor, you can save up to 8 lives and enhance the lives of 75 others. Please go to our website. Pledge a gift of life. You'll be glad you did.
Just more of a push for Indigenous languages being heard, seen, whether it's in the media or just on signs on the road. Culture and language is such an important piece to reconciliation, and I feel like that's the goal that I want to see. So just more Indigenous languages being lifted and promoted and encouraged and spoken and just heard.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
Ladies, leave your man at home tonight.
Hey, this is Dominique Orley. I'm a part of Encore 3, and be sure to catch my set this week.
We are going downtown, leaving out all your stress and your sorrow.
I need to know that my voice matters and feel like my opinion is going to have an impact on our society and our youth.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, he doesn't have a crown estate to manage, but he is here with us every Monday. It's Money Mondays with Peter Fraser, certified financial planner, and he is now with Credential QTrade Securities, Inc. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you again, Peter. It's been a while. We have not been together on a regular basis because of summer holidays and events being what they are. But it's September, and you have lots of new information to share with our listeners. So first and foremost, your new firm. So tell us about it.
That's right. Well, September is sort of a new year for many of us, and or marks that anyway. And I'd like to share with listeners this morning quite a big new start on my part. I'm very happy and pretty excited to share that I'm now with a new securities dealer here in Ottawa, and they're called Credential QTrade Securities, as you mentioned off the top.
And tell us a little bit more about Credential QTrade Securities then, Peter.
Well, Credential is a really strong Canadian company, and it provides wealth management services at Alterna Savings Credit Union here in Ottawa. They're a premium advice and comprehensive wealth solutions provider. And I wanted to take a couple of minutes this morning and just share 4 things that impressed me substantially enough, really, to make the change to serve clients and members here. So
go ahead.
First one is that I really appreciate the personalized client care. And very simply, they offer the best platform to meet credit union members and clients' total needs. And I was really, really impressed because end to end, it's been built with clients' needs first. And the second thing I picked up on was very impressed with the integrity and the ethics and the responsibility to clients that they exemplify. The team at Credential Securities really demonstrates a state-of-the-art financial plan quality and some really innovative solutions for clients. And I feel that that's just jumped several notches. And I'm kind of fond of saying that the Cardinal plan has landed at a new home.
Okay.
They've also got a really unique strength. You and I have talked about this before, but they have some real success, significant success, in fact, in responsible investing space. That's kind of RI, as we've talked about. And that comes through NEI Investments, and they're a Canadian asset manager with a long-standing focus on the ESG disciplines. That's, of course, environmental and social and governance. And NEI Investments is wholly owned, and they dominate one of the fastest growing investment categories in the world. And you and I have talked about this before, Rob, but I really look forward to bringing some, more ideas really about this profitable and fast growing space to our listeners.
Okay. And then there's direct investing. So tell us about that.
There really are 2 new pieces, For the first time, I'm going to be able to draw on and offer really quality capability of QTrade direct investing. And like you say, where online investing or DIY may be what a client wants as part of their approach to wealth management. But they also offer QTrade guided portfolios. And this is a really fast-growing segment of the market as well. It's a fully automated robo-investing service. And both of these are divisions of Credential QTrade Securities.
Okay. So you have Credential Securities, and then you have Alterna, and the connection between the two in Ottawa is an interesting one. Tell us a little bit more about it, Peter.
It really is, yeah. Alterna Savings Credit Union is a very storied company with deep history and connections to Ottawa, as you say. It was first established as the Civil Service Savings and Loan Society 114 years ago. I think many of us in this town will fondly recall referring to it as the Civil Service Co-op. And interestingly, it was the first Canadian cooperative banking approach outside of Quebec. But Alterna is a very strong multi-billion-dollar Canadian company. And I'm going to say my new team likes to consider ourselves as stewards of members' hard-earned capital. And that identity really informs everything about how they approach how we approach our work, and of course especially passionate about a financial plan that's tailored to the very unique circumstances of each member. And Rob, you would know by now that that's right up my alley. Very, very happy to be with a group that has that as its centerpiece. So like you say, fall's here, Money Mondays is back. I think we're renewed and refreshed and certainly ready to dive into the kind of relevant and helpful advice and guidance that we're passionate about. And I'd make the case that it's probably never been more important for us to have these kinds of conversations. But listeners can reach me at a new location. It's called Money Mondays at alterna.ca. But
I love
certainly
that.
with questions.
That's a great handle, Peter. I like that. That's very good. Yeah.
little bit of you and a little bit of me.
Love it.
But questions about what they hear you and I talking about, questions about the Cardinal Plan, questions about where we find ourselves these days, because it's a pretty important time for everybody in the financial space. And Money Mondays at alterna.ca is that location.
Okay, Money Mondays at alterna.ca, and we really enjoyed having you on the program this week. We look forward to next week as well, Peter. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
That's Peter Fraser, now certified financial planner with Credential QTrade Securities.
Hey, it's Sam. Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. That was a lot. I think I need a nap.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
I'm Mallory, and I was walking home one night when an impaired driver hit me. He had been overserved in 2 bars before getting behind the wheel. If the servers would have called him a cab instead of serving him more alcohol, my life would be the same as what it used to be. I think servers play the biggest role in keeping us safe because it's up to them what state the person's in when they leave. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
That's the way I
I kill, my skill sharpened, cause I've been here sharpening.
What's going on, y'all? It's Jay Morris, aka your favorite light skin, and you're gonna check out my performance on Encore Ottawa 3 coming up this week. Let's go.
All again, murderation, 911, call it in. Me, I murder every.
And the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Monday, September 19th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now, 11 degrees in Ottawa, 12 degrees in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The state funeral for Queen Elizabeth II drew millions of people to the streets of London, likely billions more to a TV or computer screen. Now, while the service ended around 7 o'clock this morning our time, there are still events planned today. To honor Queen Elizabeth II this afternoon in Ottawa, they range from a downtown parade to a 96-gun salute. Here's City News reporter Prushka Gobelkista.
The parade begins at 12:10 p.m. on Cartier Square Drill Hall behind City Hall and will make its way to Christchurch Cathedral on Spark Street, where an invitation-only commemorative service will take place. That service starts at 1 p.m. Guests at this service include government officials as well as people representing organizations with ties to the Queen. There will also be a 96-gun salute, one for each year of the monarch's life. Now, as the parade continues along Wellington Street, the shots will be fired from a secure area on the Breton Flats, which is expected to last approximately 16 minutes. The Royal Canadian Armed Forces CF-18s will fly over downtown, with the service ending in Christchurch Cathedral. Now, because of the parade, downtown streets like Wellington, Lyon, Kent and Bank, along with other streets in the core, will be closed to vehicles. Several routes on OC Transpo also expected to be detoured, and at 1 p.m. buses and trains will be held at stations to observe a moment of silence. Perushka Gopalkista, City News.
Now more on the funeral with Jamie Pulfer coming up in a moment. But first, your forecast, and here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
The rain, at times heavy for us today, could collect another 15 millimeters of rain, but more for areas that get into some isolated storms. 15 for the high, that's it. More showers tonight near 12 and showers tomorrow morning 17. For today, the high 15.
And right now it's 11 degrees in Ottawa, 12 degrees in Smiths Falls. City News Time, 10:02. Today's state funeral for Queen Elizabeth II drew a lot of people to the streets of London. Members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and representatives of the Royal Canadian Armed Forces joined military members from around the Commonwealth at Westminster Abbey for the procession that followed the state funeral. We get the latest from City News reporter Jamie Pulfer.
An emotional and powerful service at Westminster Abbey with huge crowds gathered outside. Some of the hauntingly beautiful music that filled that historic place where the Queen had her coronation and wedding. 2,000 people in attendance, including so many foreign dignitaries, along with generations of royals. This was the first monarch's funeral at the Abbey since the 18th century. The Duke of Canterbury spoke about the Queen who pledged her life to the crown.
People of loving service are rare in any walk of life. Leaders of loving service are still rarer.
The service ended with 2 minutes of silence across the UK. And then God Save the King. Jamie Pulfer, City News.
Now, the hearse carrying the Queen's coffin just about to arrive at Windsor Castle. A private ceremony will be held for members of the royal family there. City News time 10:03. Prime Minister Trudeau will be among world leaders who gather at the United Nations this week in the shadow of Europe's first major conflict since the Second World War. Russia's war in Ukraine expected to dominate talks at the annual General Assembly meeting in New York City. Now, Trudeau will attend the opening of the session high-level general debate tomorrow and will take part in several side summits. He is there until Thursday. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on The Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Praise God for her constant example of Christian faith and devotion. With affection, we recall her love for her family and her commitment to the causes she held dear. Now, in silence, let us in our hearts and minds recall our many reasons for thanksgiving. Pray for all members of her family, and commend Queen Elizabeth to the care and keeping of Almighty God.
In 1953, the Queen began her coronation with silent prayer, just there, at the high altar. Her allegiance to God was given before any person gave allegiance to her. Her service to so many people in this nation, the Commonwealth and the world, had its foundation in her following Christ, God Himself, who said that He came not to be served, but to serve, and to give His life as a ransom for many. People of loving service are rare in any walk of life. Leaders of loving service are still rarer. But in all cases, those who serve will be loved and remembered when those who cling to power and privileges are long forgotten.
Some of the highlights again from the funeral service for Queen Elizabeth II from earlier today. This is the Rob Snow Show. It is the Talkback Hour at 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. This is the biggest story in the world, the funeral for Queen Elizabeth II. Asking you, what words or phrases come to mind when you think of the Queen? What words or phrases come to mind when you think of the Queen? And what have you thought of the news coverage? I mean, it's been nonstop since the news was released about her doctors being concerned about her health, even before we learned of her passing. Some people think it's too much. Others think it's fitting for someone of the Queen's magnitude and her impact in global affairs. So 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Just while I wait for the phone lines to get busy there. Let's go back to City News, where we have multi-platform coverage anchored by Lisa LaFlamme. Let's listen. This is live right now on City News.
This is soon she's going to be
these items, these symbols are going to be removed from her, and really at that point, does she cease to be queen in many ways by having these sort of very visual representations of that queenship removed from her side?
I think that's when something more powerful takes over, which is the memory of her, and it doesn't depend on earthly symbols.
Exactly.
It's just our minds and how we order on her and keep her in our hearts.
Literally, the end of this second Elizabethan era happens right here on this road as they make their way up to Windsor Castle.
The sound of bells and gun salutes.
I think the members of the family are waiting at the quadrangle to accompany the hearse.
Some City News coverage of the procession of the hearse to Windsor Castle. 10 after 10 on the Rob Snow Show here on City News. So again, words or phrases that come to mind when you think of the Queen. And what have you thought of the news coverage? What have you thought of the news coverage? Just be curious to know. Always shining a curious light on the news media here on the Rob Snow Show. Paul. Good morning, Paul. You're on City News.
Hi. Sorry. I can't really hear you because I can hear the coverage in the background.
All right. We'll fix that up, Paul. Just hold on. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's
it's better. Okay. All we had to do was press the magic button. Okay. What have you thought of the coverage?
I thought it doesn't reflect what Canadians are feeling. I'm just looking at some polls and headlines here on the internet.
Yeah.
NPR, 35% of Canadians support the constitutional monarchy only.
Mm-hmm.
I got a CTV statement here showing that more than half of Canadians say that Canada should not remain part of the monarchy.
Right.
And City News showing that support for the monarchy is dropping to 34% now that the Queen is gone.
Right.
And that's been pretty consistent for, a little while now.
Okay.
But I find the news coverage has been very, focused on the Queen herself, but not getting into these issues.
Right.
There's some serious issues to get into there about the monarchy.
Oh, yeah.
And I just find it overall...
Issues such as, Paul, issues such as?
There's the fact that there's, you have countries leaving the monarchy. Jamaica's going to pursue it shortly, I think. You have issues over, if you actually just look at the crown itself, the physical crown, the controversy just in those physical crowns with the diamonds and the gems and how they were taken away from some countries and stuff.
Right.
This is not, and the whole idea of
colonialism, imperialism, these kinds of things,
right? It's the 21st century.
Yeah.
The rise of authoritarian.
And some people see this as an archaic institution. I understand that, right?
Yeah, and that's me. I'm like, I just don't get it. And
you don't get it.
And I really wish the news coverage would be more reflective of the opinions of Canadians.
Right, you're talking more about the institution, though.
Yes.
Where this is a funeral for a person.
Well,
right?
It's a funeral for a queen.
A queen,
right? So you can't just separate her from the institution.
You don't think you can separate the queen from the crown?
Not in the ceremonies. No.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
I'll add something.
Yes.
Prince Charles is not going to pay an inheritance tax. King Charles is not going to pay an inheritance tax.
Right.
While every British citizen has to.
Okay.
That's just one law for the monarchy, one law for the commoners.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not a fan.
I am. Well, you know what? You asked for some words. I was going to say this: nice lady, bad institution.
Nice lady, bad institution. Okay.
There you go.
Fair enough, Paul. Fair enough. No. Okay. There's nothing in Ottawa he won't talk about, is what the big voice says. 750-1310. 750-1310. 613-750-1310 in Brockville. Dave, you're on City News. Dave.
Hello?
Hi, Dave. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm calling from my car on the cell phone. So
yeah, you sound okay. What words or phrases come to mind when you think of the Queen?
Well, for for the past 70-some years, well, I can't say that because I was a child, but the words are moral compass.
Moral compass, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
she's been a moral compass to me and to many, I think.
How so? Just by the example that she has set for duty, service, these kinds of things?
Just the way a Queen Mother should behave, just as we would look to our own mothers. She was our compass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Set a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Okay. What have you thought of the news coverage, Dave?
I woke up without thinking about it, but the TV was just turned and started on, and I thought it was very respectful and very meaningful. So thank you very much for
Fitting.
that.
Okay, Dave. Thank you. All right. Very good.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Yeah, Rob Snow Show. The biggest news story in the world is the funeral for Queen Elizabeth II. Words or phrases that come to mind when you think of the Queen. And what have you thought of the news coverage? I'd be curious to know. 750-1310. This is City News.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The houseless crisis, because it really is a crisis down here on Rideau Street. There is not enough shelters for men especially, and we need to be helping our most vulnerable.
I think that overall there needs to be kind of a change of like how we're communicated with as like the youth becomes a like part of the growing population. I think there's different ways to get the message across, and I think if they use those kind of channels, I would be inspired, and I think myself and my age group and people younger than me would be kind of more inspired to get out there and realize that like their vote would be making a change.
Our generation, we're not on the news, we're not on the radio. If you're gonna like get out to us, it's gonna be through social media. So I mean, if we saw a bit more through social media and more stuff, not trends, but just like things that actually get the youth's attention, you know? Because I remember when I was a young kid, they used to come into our schools, give us all these promises. They never followed through, but they still came into our schools.
Flooding is causing widespread devastation in Pakistan. More than 1,000 people have died. 1/3 of the country is underwater, and 6 million people are in need of emergency assistance. The humanitarian coalition is responding to the crisis in Pakistan. You can help. Donate today at together.ca, and your donation will be matched by the Canadian government. That's together.ca, the humanitarian coalition. Together, saving more lives.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Next time on Simply Cooking by New Chef, I'm sharing some of my Italian family secrets. Come join me and see what they are while I prepare a traditional Italian pork feast.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
What words or phrases come to mind when you think of the Queen? As the world watches this Queen being laid to rest. And what have you thought of the nonstop news coverage? It's been around the clock since, you think back to when we first heard her doctors are concerned about her health. You remember that Thursday? Some say too much. Others say, fitting for someone of her magnitude. We are bringing you multi-platform coverage here at City News. It's ongoing right now. being anchored by Lisa LaFlamme. This is a little bit of it here live on City News. This is what it sounds like right now.
So again, the crowd just getting thicker, denser, and denser as this procession gets closer and closer, Lisa.
Very emotional, Tammy. Thank you so much. And a beautiful interview with a gentleman. I mean, I defy anyone not to get emotional when they hear the pipes and drums, especially when it is following the coffin of Her Majesty, as we are seeing unfold. We've also been watching royals from around Europe and we saw Tony Blair and his wife arriving. This is inside the chapel.
So a little bit. 1019. Words or phrases that come to mind when you think of the Queen. What have you thought of the news coverage? I can't say I've ever seen a funeral quite like that, ending 10 days of mourning in the UK. Leaders from all over the world, heads of government, heads of state, other members of other royal families. A London crowd estimated to be around 1 million people, maybe more. All gathered to witness and say goodbye to this towering world figure, someone who has been part of history for 70 years. And what a life lived, and what a send-off. But what comes to mind for you when you hear the Queen or Queen Elizabeth II? Words or phrases that come to mind for you? Rodney. Good morning, Rodney. You're on City News.
Good morning.
Hi, Rodney. What words or phrases come to mind?
God Save the Queen.
God Save the Queen.
Has to come to mind.
Sure.
And this is what I've been thinking about in the last, week or so. And I actually wanted to mention that on Friday with a bit more on it. With just the music. And then in my case, I'm 70 years old, so I'm going to think of 65 years of God Save the Queen. But 65 years ago, school was started with, God Save the Queen.
Sure,
Canada.
Yeah, it was a much different school environment, that's for sure, Rodney.
Yes. And then I was sort of surprised that you were surprised that it would be 1 year before King Charles would be coronated, and I thought the reason for that was there was the 1 year of grief would be tradition. Not to maybe step forward,
Okay. Okay.
Hey, and then there's some other information I'm going to give you too.
All right.
At 95, when she lost King Charles,
Prince Philip, you mean? Prince Philip, yeah.
Prince Philip.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of wonderment, and thanks for helping me out, which is usually when people, like a couple have been together for a very long time, usually it's a period of 2 years after the death of one of them. If one of the partners is able to make it through the first 2 years, because the first year of grief is the big milestone, 2 years, usually they live on for, quite a while.
Very interesting, yeah.
And then on all the news coverage, I'm thinking some of the insight of the Queen, and some of this is to do with renewing royalty and allowing people to say goodbye so that maybe they have more feeling for the crown to sort of strengthen the crown.
All right.
And then there's a couple other things that sort of come up, that will come up, and it sort of came up with your first caller a little bit. And what I was wondering is, how long after the funeral will people be waiting, or politicians be waiting, before the ism and schism starts? And
it's already started, Rodney.
Also the centuries of accumulations, like thousands of years of accumulations of royal objects, within the pageantry. And the income tax, $695 million, I heard, sort of for an inheritance type thing. And no tax on it.
No tax, Okay, all right, I got you, Rodney. Yep, you're all over the place again. Garth in PN2PN, a wonderful place to be in. Hi, Garth.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Garth. Words or phrases when you think about the Queen?
She had a wonderful sense of humor.
Sense of humor.
She could laugh at herself, and she really enjoyed a good laugh.
Okay.
She didn't mind being spoofed or lampooned, unlike other public figures that are insulted or don't like being made fun of. She took it all in stride.
Seemed to. Okay.
One of my favorite spoofs, people that did a spoof of her, was Scott Thompson from Kids in the Hall. He did a wonderful Queen Elizabeth.
Right.
And she loved it.
Okay. I don't know if she loved it or not. I've never heard her comment on that, but nevertheless.
Yeah, in an interview with Mr. Thompson, he said that he had heard that she didn't mind his impression of her.
Okay, all right. The coverage, it's been nonstop for a week and a half here.
I think it's fitting.
It's
tribute.
fitting. Okay, all right.
Again, she was quite the world leader on the stage, head of the Commonwealth of many countries.
Yep.
And as you said, it's the end of an era. This will probably be a historic last coverage for a monarch or royal of this stature. So, I think it is fitting.
Okay, Garth, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yep. Words or phrases that come to mind for you when you think about the Queen. I have a few. They might be different from yours. We might not share the same opinions of this person or this institution. I'm really talking about the person more than the institution. I find myself able to separate the two. Maybe others don't think you should separate the two. Okay. To me, there's this person, the Queen, the only Queen I've ever known, and then there's the crown and all that comes with that. And what I want to get into is what words or phrases come to mind when you think of the Queen. Or if you want to talk about the crown, that's fine too. The institution, not the Netflix series, but by all means, lines are open at 750-1310. Armand, you're on City News. Armand.
Well, I think I'm fed up with the Queen here of that.
Oh, really?
Talking.
Okay.
I'm not a supporter at all of her.
Okay.
So it's just driving me nuts. The more you hear about it, the more you learn to just tune this stuff out. And I'm sure a lot of people are tired of hearing that.
Okay.
We're not with her anymore. We are Canada, period.
Right. Okay. But it is part of our history, right? It's part of our government, right? It's part of our government as well, right? We're still a constitutional monarchy. It's almost impossible for us not to be a constitutional monarchy.
Well, I agree, but enough is enough.
Enough is enough. A week and a half of this is enough. Is that what you're saying?
Come on, that's enough. Give it a break.
Okay. What? All right. Let me ask you this, Armand, because you're not usually this hostile. With me. You're very fired up today. You're very passionate. I've heard you passionate on other issues before, but not quite so passionate as I've heard you this morning. Why do you feel the way you do?
Well, first of all, in her country, people are starving to death everywhere.
It's very difficult there right now. Yeah.
Very, very hard. And here they have everybody kind of, let's say, I wouldn't call it catering, is probably another word for it, to them. They should look and say, okay, now.
But how do you explain this outpouring of grief? There are, a million people in the streets who want to say goodbye to this woman. They're lining up for 12, 13, 14 hours to see the woman's coffin. How do you explain that?
That I can't understand. It's either just a question of the brainwash by what they hear.
Adoration, perhaps, respect, love.
Respect to who? To who? To love who? We don't know this person. All we know is when she comes to Canada, she's got her hands in our pocket for us to cover everything.
Oh, come on.
So I get frustrated with that.
Okay.
But that's all I'm saying.
All right, Armand. Fair enough. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay. There you go. Halftime, and opinions are all over the place, and they are decidedly mixed on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by local authors for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
Policing in every community is going to be challenged. The community policing model is already a harm reduction response to the way that they police. I just think that we have, again, another opportunity to use police for the things that police should be used for, and then develop some other avenues for things that we can take off a police officer's plate, because it's just not what they should be doing.
$20. And Maggie, Mrs. Calabash, come into my kitchen. A quick mayonnaise, egg yolks, garlic, Dijon mustard, lemon juice, olive oil, immersion blender. Go down, come up. Voila, mayonnaise. Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. Hell.
Ladies, leave your man at home tonight.
Hey, this is Dominique Orley. I'm a part of Encore 3, and be sure to catch my set this week.
We are going downtown, leaving out all your stress and your sorrow.
I need to know that my voice matters and feel like my opinion is going to have an impact on our society and our youth.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Monday, September 19th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, light rain and 11. In Smiths Falls, it is 13. Here's what's making news this hour. The Queen's funeral procession is at Windsor Castle, and it's now underway. Queen Elizabeth's coffin was taken to Windsor Castle from Westminster Abbey on a last procession through the heart of London. Members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and representatives of the Canadian Armed Forces joined military members from around the Commonwealth at Westminster Abbey for the procession following the state funeral. King Charles III and other members of the royal family were seen walking behind the gun carriage that carried the Queen's coffin to the hearse that is now making its way to Windsor. The Queen will be buried at St. George's Chapel alongside her husband, Prince Philip. Ontario is expected to make funding decisions for a long COVID strategy in the near future. Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kieran Moore, says health officials are working to create standard definitions and treatment protocols for long COVID-19. Hospitals have been submitting proposals to Ontario's health, and now the province is working to provide guidance to primary care professionals on how to care for patients with long COVID symptoms. Experts have said the prevalence of long COVID in the population may be anywhere from 2 to 54%. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will be among the world leaders gathering at the United Nations this week in the shadow of Europe's first major conflict since the Second World War. Russia's war in Ukraine is expected to dominate talks at the annual General Assembly meeting in New York City. In addition to the war, many nations worldwide are also confronting inequality, climate crisis, the threat of multiple famines, and increasing misinformation and hate speech. City News time is 10:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Words or phrases that come to mind when you think of the Queen. What have you thought of the news coverage? The scenes on television right now with this final procession and the crowds that are lining this roadway as the bands go down the street. Can we listen to a little bit of this? This is amazing. This is our coverage on City TV, anchored by Lisa LaFlamme. Let's listen to a little bit of this live on City News.
Stairs into the chapel, but an exhausting and powerful and emotional, every word you can think of that they have experienced for that family culminates to this moment.
So that's live on City News right now. We have 4 lines available right now. Love to hear from you. Words or phrases come to mind when you think of the Queen. I have a few. I've thought about them from time to time over the last week and a half. I mean, it's hard not to, just given how significant a moment this is, and the media coverage of it tonight. That's why I wanted to ask you about that as well. I mean, it has been like wall to wall and end to end, and it's been constant news coverage in the media. And what have you thought of that? One of our callers expressed fatigue with it. Enough. News fatigue. I saw that in the news last week. I had to read the news to learn about news fatigue. We certainly had that with COVID at some point. 2 years of the pandemic, a lot of people had COVID fatigue. I get that. But some people think this is all a bit too much. The nonstop, around-the-clock, 24/7 coverage on all the cable news networks, on the supper hour news, and then again on the late news. And you get the newspaper in the morning, and it's in the newspaper. It's like coverage of the Queen from every conceivable angle down to who gets the corgis. So what do you think about it? Over the top or fitting, given what a prominent figure this person was for decades? This is a constant figure in Western culture going back to the early 1950s. It is the end of an era. And sure, that's a cliche, but in this case, this is the end of an era. It really, really is. But nevertheless, there has been polling that has been released over the last week or so. As one of our callers pointed out, 750-1310, it has shown that a sizable percentage of the population, for them, this event has no meaning. And they feel no connection to it whatsoever. So I understand, I appreciate if that's your point of view, this news coverage comes across as excessive. 750-1310. So that's one angle to the question, the news coverage. And the other one is words and phrases that come to mind when you think about the Queen. What are they? Words and phrases that come to mind when you think about the Queen. I'd love to know on this day. We've spent a lot of time. We really haven't spent a lot of time when you think about the news coverage on this show, talking about her legacy and the history and your impressions of it, not as much as other media outlets. And it's not even taking up the entirety of our show today. There are other news stories that we're going to be covering today, like the municipal election. We're going to do that in about a half an hour from now. But just given the significance of this particular day, this event, this remarkable, regal send-off, this goodbye, I mean, this is quite likely going to be the most watched television event in history, this funeral. I would like to know your impressions of Her Majesty. Words or phrases that come to mind when you think about the Queen. For me, maybe if I get started, grace. Grace. Duty. Service. Words that I've heard over and over and over again in some combination since the news hit about her passing. She had such grace. In other words, she had such elegance. She had such poise, a charm, grace, and used that during her duty and her service that seemed to define her whole reign. How many, it was mentioned during one of the eulogies, during the actual funeral service, and how many times we've heard this recording of a 21-year-old princess at the time, pledging her life to public service, even before she became the Queen. She was 21 at the time. She became Queen when she was 25. Duty and service. And my goodness, did she set an example for that? The Dean of Westminster used the term selfless today. Selfless. She was selfless. Those are some of the words that come to mind for me. Some of the phrases that come to mind for me when I think about the Queen. And they're not the only ones. Another one would be strength. Strength. I mean, she had to have the strength to do that job so well for so long, because you have to think there were dark times. She talked about her annus horribilis, the 1992 year. The fire at Windsor Castle. Fergie splashed all over the tabloids because Fergie was having an affair. Anne was getting a divorce. Charles and Diana had separated. And it's all in the tabloids. That's a bad year. There was more to come. I mean, there must have been times, you would have to think there must have been times when she thought, my whole family's a basket case. And what is to become of this institution when I'm gone? And yet there she was doing her public service, her duty, right up until the end, inviting Liz Truss to form a government, the newest British Prime Minister, doing that just 2 days before she passed away. I mean, to me, that's incredible. That's grace. That's a life of service. That's a life of duty, showing strength and perseverance. Perseverance would be another word that comes to mind. 750-3010. Patricia. Good morning, Patricia.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, Patricia. Thank you. Words or phrases that come to mind?
Privilege.
Privilege. Okay. Yeah.
Now, I don't pretend to be well-versed in international affairs or politics. I certainly don't claim that. Some of your callers are quite knowledgeable and very educated on those types of things. But, I mean, the media coverage of this is extreme. I understand that some people are mourning the loss, but I can't help but think about the millions of dollars that this funeral is going to be costing, and people who are hungry. I mean, I remember months ago, you had someone on your show talking about people that were starving in the Horn of Africa and the droughts that were going on there.
Yes, yeah.
And
that was Jeffrey Johnston. Yeah,
it was and it was a ghost in the media. Like I couldn't find. This is huge news. I just get really angry.
Okay.
When this much money is spent on a funeral for a person, I mean, to honor her legacy, that money should be given to people who are in need, in my opinion. I don't know how that would happen or what that would look like.
Right.
I just think it's
over the top. You think
it's over the top?
Okay.
Come on now.
Okay.
And I mean, when
I know that there's always this opinion. How much? Sorry, Patricia. I know there's always this debate. How much is the crown costing? It's particularly contentious in the United Kingdom, as you can imagine. But one of the counter arguments is, can you imagine how much just having the Queen or the crown and the royal family, how much that brings into the UK economy?
Yeah, I suppose. And
how many people? How many people? Right? How many people? How many people go to London because they want to see all things royal? Right?
Yeah.
Go on the tours, go to the museums, go see this, go see that. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's a huge thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just think that, considering other global affairs that's been happening throughout the years, that the media coverage on this is extreme. I do think of privilege when I think of the Queen and the monarchy. I think it's over the top. I think
that's fair. That's fair. That's why I wanted to do this show today. Yeah. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
Privilege.
Take care.
Privilege. That's another word that will come to mind. Right? Because for some people, it may depend on their background, where they come from, their age. Like, I'm a 50-year-old white guy who grew up in Canada, small town, white. Right? It will mean different things to me than it would mean to other people. To me, she's a symbol. The crown is a symbol. And it's everywhere, right? It's on our money. It's on buildings. It's on highways. It's on schools. It's on names of cities, towns, villages. The institution is a symbol. But I get it. Believe me, I get it, that it's not for everyone. To me, she represents tradition. She represents heritage. She represents continuity, a constant. She's been a constant. Whether you think about it in terms of the monarchy or even just in terms of popular culture. What figure has been part of popular culture longer? Boy, not many. Not even the Beatles. Not even the Beatles or the Rolling Stones. But I understand that where I say I might see symbolism, others will have very different feelings. Where I would see an important symbol that unites a large and sparsely populated country and a diverse country like Canada. There are people who feel none of that, and they see it as privilege, like our caller said. They might see this queen as the epitome of privilege. Has there ever been anyone more privileged? Or they see the symbols of colonialism, imperialism, exploitation. I don't discount those opinions at all. At 750-1310. Joan in Ottawa. Joan.
Yes, good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Joan.
Hi, how are you? I just tuned in about 2 or 3 minutes, and I note there's a little bit of dissatisfaction with one or two of your callers, and I have only been listening for a couple of minutes.
That's okay.
Tuned in. Anyway, to cut a long story short, as far as Canada's contribution, and people saying what it costs them. Actually, if any brains would look into the fact that we are not supporting Britain, we have a representative in the Governor General.
Sure. Yeah.
Governor General Mary Simons, I believe.
Mary Simon.
That's
yes.
her name.
Yeah.
And about 3-4 years ago, those who have the knowledge to do cost, it cost about, at that time, 3 or 4 years ago, the average, it would cost a Canadian $1.64 per year. $1.64 per year to cover the costs of the Governor General, the Queen's the monarch's representative.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Canada.
All right.
And the total, if they added up, it would be about $65 million. So people who get their knickers in a twist, they better get their knickers untwisted. Cheerio, okay. Rob.
All right, Joan. Thank you. Okay, goodbye. Okay. 10:46. Be right back. Rob Snow Show, City News.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
It was John's graduation. We were so proud. We all got together for a picnic. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and we listened. It helped us get to safety. That's why when I think of John, because now he has a real future to look forward to.
Phage, host of Daytime Ottawa, and I invite you to tune in to Daytime Monday to Friday to find out what's happening in your city. We'll introduce you to fabulous artists, authors, musicians, local business owners. We'll tell you about the fantastic festivals and charity events that are happening in the city. We'll give you tips on health and wellness, some fabulous recipes, and so much more. That's Daytime Ottawa right here on Rogers TV.
Here we go. You're going back in, okay?
It's a new season of the new Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
The way I kill my skill sharpen, cause I've been here sharpening.
What's going on, y'all? It's Jay Morris, aka your favorite light skin, and you're gonna check out my performance on Encore Ottawa 3 coming up this week. Let's go.
All again, murderation, 911, call it in. Me, I murder every.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
We'll be moving away from our coverage of the funeral for Queen Elizabeth II. Coming up after the 11 o'clock news, we'll be covering some municipal affairs and the municipal election campaign. 35 days to go until October 24th, and we have, lots of controversies in the mix. After the 11:30 news, a candidate for mayor, Bob Chiarelli, is going to join us. But in the final few minutes that we have, once again want to remind you, we have multi-platform coverage here on City News for you, and it's all anchored by Lisa LaFlamme out of the UK. She's been there for the last 9 or 10 days or so, and this is what it sounds like right now on City News.
Children now won't have that, but it's only really now. Like, somebody's life being documented by photograph.
She's not the only person.
She is probably the only person. It is extraordinary.
I picked up a magazine yesterday that had beautiful colorized photos of she was 8 years old on the grounds of Windsor Castle, where they call themselves We Four.
Yes.
Her father called them We Four for Margaret Elizabeth, the Queen Mum, and the King.
And obviously famously Lilibet, which is a huge number as well, which is.
So again, we've been asking you throughout the hour, Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show, City News, because this is the biggest news story in the world, this funeral. Words or phrases that come to mind when you think of the Queen. And what have you thought of the news coverage? Some people have called and haven't thought too much of it. Think it's all a bit much, which is, fair, I guess. I guess that's fair. I'll have to tell you, it is a huge news story. When has anyone ever seen a funeral like this? I've never watched a funeral like this in all my years. I'll quite likely never see another one as long as I live that looks quite like this one. But there's been around-the-clock coverage of the death of the Queen for a week and a half, and news fatigue has been expressed. I don't happen to think so. I'm going to go, when I leave work, I'm going to go home and watch some more of it. I'm just saying that it's an opinion that's out there. I would like to know your opinion. However, Mo is kind enough to call in. Mo Canada. Hi, Mo.
Morning, Rob.
Hi, Mo.
How are you?
I'm good. Mo?
Good. I'm doing good. So I have a question for you. You remember the fella that fell down the other day, the Queen's guard?
Yeah, one of the foot guards, yes.
Yeah, it fainted?
Yes, yeah.
Like, I have a different outtake about that.
Okay.
Nobody went over and looked at it, even the guys beside him. This is a tradition, I know, but it's still, that's somebody's family. That's somebody's father's son.
Right.
Well, he lay there.
Yeah, they did kind of just drag him away, didn't they? They kind of did.
Yeah, you trying to, I have nothing against the celebration, how they want to, but it's a tradition.
Yeah.
You're trying to do this for somebody else, but you couldn't help the one that needed that moment. A split second. Move away the camera and then give him the dignity. Someone give him a CPR.
Oh, okay.
It really bothered me that...
That bothered you. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. All right.
Somebody's death,
and also we have another live human being in front of us, and nobody attended to him because of tradition.
Right. Well, no, the other guard standing next to him just kept standing on guard, right? Yeah. Maybe that has something to do with protocol, I guess. I don't know.
But it's still protocol reverse. Let's say, how about if there was a security scare? Would they be still standing like that? If, let's say, a streaker, like when we go to the football games, it's always a streaker out of a red flag.
Right.
So if there was, they would have just tackled him.
All right. Yeah. Okay. All right, Mo. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Mo didn't like the way that poor fellow who passed out was treated. Thought he deserved a little bit more help. Fair enough. There's all kinds of talk, and we've heard it this hour. Let's get rid of the crown. And that sentiment is always kind of there. Even if this wasn't happening, that would be there, because that is a debate that's been going on for so long in this country. I'm not surprised at all, given this historic moment in time, this end of an era. That people have taken up this cause again. Basically, republicanism. Let's become the Republic of Canada. Ditch the crown, become the Republic of Canada. I'm not really down for that. I can explain why, but if you have an opinion on that, look, I'm not the biggest Trudeau fan. I don't think that's a secret, but I think the Prime Minister's right when he says we have bigger issues than this country than opening up that constitutional can of worms. And it's nearly impossible to do anyway. The bar is so high, it's darn near futile to even attempt to try it. But I would ask you, what would be the point of cutting our ties to the monarchy? What does it accomplish? Is it supposed to show that Canada's all grown up, that we're not a colony, that we're a fully formed adult country? I think we've achieved that. We don't have to sever, this historic tie to prove that we're among the world's greatest countries. And as I said shortly after the passing of Her Majesty, Canada's a big, big country with a small population. It's very diverse, and ties that bind are important. And I think this is one of them. That's just a personal opinion. I totally understand and appreciate if you think I'm crazy. It just might be a lunatic you're looking for. I think for a country to hold itself together, symbols are important. Whether it's a sports hero, a cultural figure, a pop culture figure, wildlife like the loon and the beaver, or the Queen. Symbols are important. It's going to be hard to get used to King Charles III. That's going to take some getting used to. Plus, you know what else I like? Our ties to the monarchy, our membership in the Commonwealth is something that makes us different from the Americans. And I like that. We didn't have to have a bloody battle to gain our independence. We just kind of grew into it. If we became a republic, we'd look more and more American. That's the Talkback Hour. Thank you for your calls. We'll turn our attention to municipal affairs coming up right after the news on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The houseless crisis, because it really is a crisis down here on Rideau Street. There is not enough shelters for men especially, and we need to be helping our most vulnerable.
It isn't the heavy trays that make the job difficult, or the fast pace you need to keep up. It's not working another double because someone called in sick. What makes the job tough is the moment you realize a customer has had enough and you have to make that decision not to overserve. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law. We know it's not easy, but we're counting on you to keep us all safe. Thank you, servers, for doing the tough job.
Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m., it's the RTV quiz. Giovanni Petiti hosts a weekly trivia competition that lets you play from the comfort of your couch. Play along at home and challenge your friends. And don't forget to follow along on social media. Let us know who's top of trivia, and you can find yourself featured on a future episode.
Are you kidding me, folks?
The RTV quiz, Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. on Rogers TV or at rogerstv.com/RTV quiz.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Next time on Simply Cooking by New Chef, I'm sharing some of my Italian family secrets. Come join me and see what they are while I prepare a traditional Italian pork feast.
WW 1310 AM in Ottawa
and CJET 101.1 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Monday, September 19th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, light rain, 11 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it is 13. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. As was the scene in London, tens of thousands of people have come to Windsor for their chance to say goodbye to Queen Elizabeth II. More on the state funeral in a moment, but first, the Queen's body has arrived in Windsor after the more than hour drive from England's capital. City News reporter Erin Precklitz joins us with the latest on the funeral procession.
This is the sound of the Queen's coffin making its last journey down Long Walk at Windsor Castle. People are lining the whole route. They are shoulder to shoulder, in some cases more than 20 people deep behind the barricade. The coffin is slowly making its way to St. George's Chapel for a private service, mostly family and other royals, the British Prime Minister among those who are there. CNN's Richard Quest says everyone has a role to play today.
The military, it is to pay honour to their monarch. For the citizens, or their sovereign, it is for the citizens, it is to pay respects to their queen. For the royal family, it is the passing of the torch.
After the service, the Queen will be buried alongside Prince Philip, who died about a year and a half ago. He's been in the royal vault in the chapel since then. He will be moved into a new location along with the Queen, buried side by side. Irene Precklitz, City News.
And our nation is saying goodbye to the Queen with an official commemoration ceremony taking place in Ottawa. That's where we find City News Parliament's reporter Cormac McSweeney.
Barricades are set up. There's a heavy police presence, and final prep is underway ahead of this service to remember Queen Elizabeth. It will feature a parade of RCMP and military members through the streets of downtown Ottawa, a 96-gun salute, the display of the Queen's personal Canadian flag, and a flypast of fighter jets. Bruce came here from Pickering since his son in the RCMP is taking part in the parade. He tells me it's an honor.
It feels very surreal.
And the fact that your son is taking part in the ceremony.
Yeah, it's a historic thing for him, too. This is his second year in the musical ride, so yeah, it's historical.
At a church service, the Queen will be eulogized by former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney and former Governor General Adrian Clarkson. The public is invited to attend, where large screens are set up outside. Cormac McSweeney, Ottawa.
Well, the weather forecast here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
The rain, at times heavy for us today, could collect another 15 millimeters of rain, but more for areas that get into some isolated storms. 15 for the high, that's it. More showers tonight near 12 and showers tomorrow morning, 17. For today, the high, 15.
City News time, 11:02. World leaders are gathering at the United Nations this week under the shadow of Europe's first major conflict since the Second World War.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the fighting it produced has sparked a global food
food crisis, and a division among major powers not seen since the Cold War at a time of increasing international turbulence. The many facets of the war in Ukraine are expected to dominate the annual General Assembly meeting. It's taking place as many countries across the globe are also confronting inequality, an escalating climate crisis, the threat of multiple famines, and increasing misinformation and hate speech. President Biden, who is attending the Queen's funeral, speaks Wednesday. Julie Walker, New York.
City News time, 11:03. The sexual assault trial for Major General Danny Fortin will begin this morning at the Gatineau Courthouse. Fortin led the government's COVID-19 vaccine campaign back in May of last year. The senior military officer was abruptly removed from that position and later charged with one count of sexual assault in August of 2021, with the case relating to an alleged incident dating from 1988. He has denied the allegations and is challenging his removal from the vaccine campaign in federal courts. A new Canadian study suggests safer opioid supply programs can significantly reduce emergency department visits and hospitalizations of those at high risk of overdose. Researchers looked at patients who used one of these programs in London, Ontario between 2016 and 2019. Lead author Tara Gomez says they found that ER visit and hospital admissions dropped a year after their clients entered the program. Gomez says they also saw a drop in healthcare costs unrelated to primary care or medication after a year. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It is a municipal Monday. Talking about municipal affairs with former Chief of Staff to Mayor Larry O'Brien. Walter Robinson is back with me here on City News. Hello, Walter.
Hello, Rob.
And former MPP and City Councillor Alex Cullen is back with me on City News. Hello, Alex Cullen.
Hello, Rob. Doing well.
Great to hear from both of you today. 35 days to go until Election Day in the big city of Ottawa. There was a poll out last week that had Councillor McKenney at 14%, Mark Sutcliffe 20%, Bob Chiarelli, my guest after the 11:30 news is Bob Chiarelli, 11%. You take Sutcliffe, you take Chiarelli, you come up with 34%. You're basically within the 31%. You're basically within the margin of error in the poll. Is vote splitting basically handing this mayor's race to McKenney? What do you think, Walter Robinson?
I don't think so. I wouldn't make that case today. Okay. I think voters are just starting to get engaged in this campaign now that we have the pollution of our arterials and with arterial signs around the roads and people in getting lawn signs up for their candidates. I'm actually surprised that Catherine was lower in that poll because they were the voice and the face, to their credit, during the Freedom Convoy of really fighting for downtown residents, but the impact of the Freedom Convoy on our city. And I was out in the burbs back in my old stomping grounds of Orleans on the weekend and noticed a good sign present of Catherine McKenney's campaign on some of the arterials, not really on people's lawns. I didn't see a lot of that for any of the candidates. I don't think vote splitting is an issue. I think it's all candidates are revolving around affordability and kind of state of city finances to a degree in their messaging. I think it'll be which candidate resonates with the most voters and what their go-TV, their get out the vote machines will be on Election Day on October 24th. I think it'll be critical.
Okay. I think Walter and I disagree on that, but how do you view it, Alex Cullen? How do you view it?
Well, I find the polls interesting because the two previous polls had McKenney in the lead, but with a significant number of undecided. And you said, Rob, we have 5 weeks to go, and many have slipped between cup and lip. I mean, we have a campaign. We got three strong candidates presenting issues and working hard. This election's not over yet.
But we all acknowledge that we do have three strong contenders with McKenney and Sutcliffe and Chiarelli. And they play to different audiences. But I have to say, I do think that McKenney, her campaign is working well. I do see Bob Chiarelli signs up. I do see Mark Sutcliffe signs up. And, of course, as Walter said, we see McKenney signs up. Well, that's part of it. But I'm also looking at lawn signs. And in my neck of the woods, I'm West End, Ottawa, there are not a lot of lawn signs, generally speaking, but where there are a lot more McKenney signs than anybody else. So 5 weeks is 5 weeks. What we see today and what we'll see in 5 weeks' time, and many things can happen. The province can make an announcement about the official plan. There may be some event happens with LRT. It can change the dynamics of the election.
Okay. All right. But 14 points, Alex, is 14 points. I mean, that's a sizable lead to have in any poll. Even if it is a municipal poll, which are, they can be more volatile than other kinds of polls with larger sample sizes. But gosh, anywhere you slice it, it has to be McKenney with a healthy lead right now. So,
well, and the interesting thing is it's the second time. The second time. Both polls have been consistent with her lead. And, there's something to be said about authenticity. People don't know Mark Sutcliffe well, but people do know how authentic Catherine McKenney is. Okay. They also know Bob Chiarelli. But her role during the convoy protest, when she went and went into the neighborhoods and talked to her residents and spoke up for them, I think that resonated very well.
When there seemed to be a vacuum of leadership at the time, whether that was in the mayor's office or with the police chief. Yep. What about that, Walter Robinson? Say, goodwill left over from the remnants of the convoy. Do you think that's beneficial to Councillor McKenney?
I think it is, in terms of name recognition. And the other challenge is I went to the websites this morning, and they've done a really good, interesting thing in terms of Catherine McKenney in the news 2014 to 2022. They've kind of built that name recognition and the record on the issues, whether you agree or not, the record on various issues of housing, of affordability, of the overdose crisis, those sorts of issues. So I think that's there. I would kind of speak to what I think we're not seeing yet that we may see. People always kind of trying to peg Mark as the business candidate or the right-of-center candidate. His contribution to community organizations, the United Way, Boys and Girls Club, a variety of things he's done over his 30-year career in this city. He started the Ottawa Business Journal just a little before I started with the Taxpayers Federation. I think that well runs deep, so I wouldn't discount that in the context of a suburban vote and other votes, but he has to work on his name recognition, and being a journalist is one thing. Being a politician is quite another, with a record, good or bad. And name recognition does matter, which is why you have, I don't want to call it residual support, but people do remember Bob as the first mayor of the new combined amalgamated city. So I believe the vote splitting, and then if you take a look at the three of them together, I think they're still underneath 50%, right? So there's still 50% of people who were polled who are just like, I don't know.
24% who are undecided because it is spread out amongst the other candidates as well. And that's the other issue. I mean, even though we focus on the so-called top three, other candidates are out there working hard. I mean, I do see signs up for McDonald. I see signs up for McGuire. I see signs up for Singh, for Kadri. I mean, there's a bunch. And they are going to attract some votes as well. I mean, Mike McGuire had his constituency outside the Greenbelt, so that's going to have an impact. So it's an election, yay, and we're having issues being presented to us and differences among the candidates, and it will really depend on how interested the electorate is. And with 11 open seats, you would think that those wards themselves would generate more turnout because of the competition that's going on. So that's another factor. Will that help push up voter turnout, and who will that benefit? I think Mark did not help himself with his $1,200.
Okay, well, let's just jump right into that. I mean, how much of how controversial is that?
Well, that's
it takes money. It takes money to run a campaign. Come on.
Sure, but
you ran for mayor. You ran for mayor, Alex. You had to raise money, right?
Well, yes, but I pitch for $100 contributions because that's what most people can afford, and that's the bulk of the folks. If you take the Bernie Sanders model, you pitch for $5, $10, $25 because that's where most of that vote is. So $1,200. I mean, that's not your everyday ordinary voter, and that is the max you can give anyway. So that smack of, whether it's fair or not, is smack of old style, business style politics, and that has backfired. You saw Mohammed Adams' op-ed piece.
Yes, I did.
And he makes a very good point. Can Mark get past that? Well, you've got 5 weeks to put this in the memory bank, but it wasn't a good move.
Walter?
You knew it was coming, and it was wholly avoidable.
Okay.
I remember speaking to a few people who were thinking about this who are not on the ballot, and they said, what should I do? I said, say you won't accept more than 500, for example, right? To get you to that $1,200 maximum, looks like you're buying influence. I think the other component here, though, is I won't accept from this developer, or even if you can't accept them, but I won't accept from developer X on a personal contribution. I would turn and say, I'll accept from anybody as long as they're not a scourge of society, so to speak, from a union leader, from a developer. Everybody has a right to say and right to contribute and whatever they want. And at some point in time, you take a look at the spread of your donations and people will judge on that. But the last time I checked, there's not anybody who walked into a ballot box, right, left, or center, and said, I don't like candidate Cullen because he got $32,000 from developers, or I don't like candidate Snow because he's only got $25 donations from 200,000 people. I think it's a tempest in a teapot. It's a process story. It happens in every election to every candidate. Does it substantively affect the outcome of the vote? No. Could you make a better decision and not doing a fundraiser at Lansdowne Park, which is kind of symbolic of developers and bad process?
Plus we have Lansdowne 2.0 and the uncertainty about Lansdowne 2.0.
I disagree with Walter on that. I do think there's a good chunk of the population that is not happy with people doing business at City Hall influencing the outcomes of elections. In previous elections, we didn't know until after the election because the law was that you reported afterwards. Very few people reported ahead of time because they weren't compelled to. Some people did, myself included, because I did not take contributions from developers. But I took that stand not only because of the ethics of you're doing business at City Hall voting on these applications, but people demanded it of me in my own ward because we had development issues. We had Carleton Mall, and people want to know, did Chiarelli contribute to your campaign? Well, obviously I didn't accept it. But so it does help. It does influence some people, but Walter has a point. Is it a determining factor? That remains to be seen. Clearly, you will see many, many campaigns saying, no, we won't take checks from developers because it plays well.
Final comment there, Walter, before we move on.
So, and this is the other thing. It's like, where do I draw the line? I understand the optics of it and people's real concerns about, because I've shared them, especially on Lansdowne 2.0. Time out on that. Thank you very much. So I don't take the CEO of the company, the local development company. Do I accept the VP's check? Do I accept the director of communications? Do I accept the check from the construction worker who does nothing but work for ABC developer? Same thing when you come to a union leader. I say, no, I'm not going to take the head of the local union person, but do I stop and do a litmus test on the the woman or man who drives a city truck or works in the planning department and just wants to make their own contribution, or works, you name it, works on the front desk at City Hall? I mean, you get into this. If you have the right to vote, you have the right to participate in many different ways. And when we start excluding people, I find that a big problem in the context of democraty.
Okay.
We're not excluding people.
Okay. Look, we only have a couple of minutes left. So, the Taywin development, should that be part of the official plan or not? Bob Shirley says it shouldn't, and the province should do something about it. Alex, what do you think about that?
Well, quite frankly, it shouldn't be in there for a whole host of reasons, but it's interesting, the dynamic here, because the province has yet to approve the city's official plan, and apparently at one of the all-candidate meetings, Bob laid out that he had talked to ministry officials and the Taywin plans were going to be removed from the OP. Now, the ministry has since denied it. They are seized with approving or amending the city's official plan. We have yet to hear their stand on this. It's interesting because these lands were originally owned by the government of Ontario. They sold them to the Taywin Development Group, and they had held them originally for development, but they sold them because it's not worthy of development. The land, the soil problems there are immense, and they're far from city services. However, Bob is saying, send it back to council. Well, this council, the Watson Council, approved it. Would the new council do that? Quite frankly, I can tell you that for many community associations looking at holding the line in urban sprawl, the Taywin development does not make sense.
Okay, let me hear from Walter then very quickly, Alex. Thank you. Walter?
I share Alex's opinion for the most part, and to his credit, he was always somebody who understood the various component parts of the official plan: transportation master plan, infrastructure, environmental, city growth, social cohesion. All those things work together. There is one thing that we need to think about, though, in the context of you cannot continue to do infill development and smart growth and kind of build up, because every time you build up, you need to change things underneath in terms of building capacity as well, which sometimes destroys or disrupts the local community network and framework. There are times when a greenfield development may make more sense than a brownfield development or infill, just in terms of servicing costs and how you want to stagger growth around the region. You need to find that balance.
Okay. Hey, thanks to the two of you. Greatly appreciated. We'll speak soon.
Next week.
Yeah, bye-bye. Walter Robinson and Alex Cullen, a little Municipal Monday action for you today. This is the Rob Snow Show. We're back. Mark Day is our news director, and he is headed downtown. We have some significant events happening downtown, military parade, a commemoration ceremony at Christ Church Cathedral in honor of Queen Elizabeth II, and some traffic interruptions as well that go along with that. So he'll give us the latest right from the scene downtown Ottawa on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by local authors for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
My husband is a wonderful man and a great father when he's not drinking. I'm so angry he chooses alcohol over us. If he really loved us, he'd stop drinking, right? My counselor suggested I try Al-Anon. I didn't understand why. I'm not the one with the problem, but I'm glad I went. Do you worry about someone's drinking? You are not alone. Al-Anon or Alateen can help. Call 866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will endeavor to describe the feeling on this ship.
The American ship is just trailing the Blue Nose.
Angus should never have agreed to this last race. She's too old.
Eddie!
Get to it, Matt!
Appears there's some kind of difficulty.
There seems to be something loose up there, I believe.
The topsail's foul!
I can't see a man.
Just once more, little girl, and you can rest.
She's holding her lead.
Her last race and still undefeated, the Blue Nose out of Lunenburg, Nova Scotia was fastest in the world for almost 20 years.
Flooding is causing widespread devastation in Pakistan. More than 1,000 people have died. 1/3 of the country is underwater, and 6 million people are in need of emergency assistance. The humanitarian coalition is responding to the crisis in Pakistan. You can help. Donate today at together.ca. and your donation will be matched by the Canadian government. That's together.ca, the humanitarian coalition. Together, saving more lives.
Ladies, leave your men at home tonight.
Hey, this is Dominique Orley. I'm a part of Encore 3, and be sure to catch my set this week.
We are going downtown, leaving out all your stress and your sorrow.
I need to know that my voice matters and feel like my opinion is going to have an impact on our society and our youth.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
11:23 here on the Rob Snow Show on City News, where we are bringing you multi-platform coverage all across the City News platforms. And right now it is the committal ceremony for Queen Elizabeth II. That's happening right now, being anchored by Lisa LaFlamme for City News. This is live here on City News.
Yet profound Christian faith bore so much fruit. Fruit in a life of unstinting service to the nation, the Commonwealth, and the wider world, but also, and especially to be remembered in this place, in kindness, concern, and reassuring care for her family and friends and neighbours. In the midst of our rapidly changing and frequently troubled world, her calm and dignified presence has given us confidence to face the future as she did, with courage and with hope.
So 5 hours plus of coverage so far today by way of City News. Now, meantime, here in Ottawa, events to mark the day. Ceremony, Christchurch Cathedral in Ottawa, beginning at 1 o'clock. Memorial Parade beginning shortly after the noon hour. Impacts on local traffic, a fly past over Parliament Hill. Mark Day is our news director. He is downtown Ottawa. Where are you, Mark, and what's happening now?
Good morning, Rob. Yes, I'm right in front of Christchurch Cathedral here on Spark Street, as some dignitaries are already making their way to the church. It's 11:25 right now, and there's been a stream of people making their way down the road here. This is ahead of the Armed Forces Parade that is beginning with members at the Cartier Square Drill Hall. So that's right behind City Hall. They'll be accompanied by a Canadian Armed Forces Central Band, and that parade will march past the War Memorial, the Parliament buildings, and will make its way down to Wellington and Bay and up here to Spark Street in front of the Christchurch Cathedral.
Okay. Are there any crowds to speak of? The weather is not the most cooperative today. It is on the chilly side. There have been downpours. We have a special weather statement in effect, as a matter of fact, because of the heavy rain for Ottawa today, Mark, as you know. I'm wondering, do you see crowds at all?
There's not a crowd in this area here near Wellington. There are some big screens that have been set up. There's lots of security set up along Wellington as well. No vehicle traffic allowed, but they do have a big screen set up. But we are about an hour and a half out from the ceremony beginning. So we do anticipate crowds arriving. In front of me now, we're seeing delegations from other countries and embassies. Those dignitaries are arriving for this service now as they walk down, most dressed in black, and they're just marching past me right now. We are learning as well, Rob, that the military jets, they have been canceled because of the weather, because of the visibility and the cloud coverage right now. So that fly past that was scheduled between 12 and 2 has been canceled because of the weather. So that's new information that we just received. So far, the rain is holding off, but quite cool on this September morning here in downtown Ottawa.
Thank you, Mark Day. Mark Day in front of Christchurch Cathedral in Ottawa. Again, that begins at 1 o'clock. When the Rob Snow Show ends, Samla Pratt will take over. She'll bring you the very latest. And Mark will be joined downtown by our parliamentary bureau chief as well, Cormac McSweeney. So Christchurch Cathedral begins at 1 o'clock. Memorial Parade with Mark outlining the route for you. Beginning shortly after the noon hour. Impacts on local traffic. You can see all of those at ottawa.citynews.ca. This is the Rob Snow Show. Bob Chiarelli will join me, candidate for mayor, right after the news on City News.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, some people used the A word. They called it an accident, but it wasn't. An accident implies that no one was at fault. But when someone impaired by alcohol and/or drugs chooses to drive, they're fully responsible for the crash that can result. So please, for the memory of my brother DJ and the thousands of families whose lives have been shattered by impaired drivers, let's drop the A word.
A crash caused by impaired driving is not an accident.
$20. Hi, I'm Maggie. Come into my kitchen. When you're using salt in a recipe, check for saltiness. Not all salts are equal. A fine grain salt is a lot more salty than a large grain salt because that takes longer to get into the food. Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
The way I kill my skill sharpen, cause I've been here sharpening.
What's going on, y'all? It's Jay Morris, aka your favorite light skin, and you're gonna check out my performance on Encore Ottawa 3 coming up this week. Let's go.
All again, murderation, 911, call it in. Me, I murder every.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Monday, September 19th. Good morning, I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, cloudy skies, 11 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. The Queen's funeral procession at Windsor is underway. Queen Elizabeth's coffin was taken to Windsor Castle from Westminster Abbey on a last procession through the heart of London. Members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and representatives of the Canadian Armed Forces joined military members from around the Commonwealth at Westminster Abbey for the procession following the state funeral. King Charles III and other members of the royal family were seen walking behind the carriage that carried the Queen's coffin to the hearse. The Queen will be buried at St. George's Chapel alongside her husband, Prince Philip. Right now, prayers are going on inside the cathedral. Ontario is expected to make funding decisions for a long COVID strategy in the near future. Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kieran Moore, says health officials are working to create standard definitions and treatment protocols for long COVID. Hospitals have been submitting proposals to Ontario Health, and now the province is working to provide guidance to primary care professionals on how to care for patients with long COVID symptoms. The Tim Hortons Smile Cookie campaign is back supporting charities in communities across the country, including Ottawa's Snowsuit Fund. This week, restaurant owners in Ottawa will donate a full $1 from every Smile Cookie sold to the Snowsuit Fund to purchase snowsuits for children 15 years and younger from low-income families. Last year, Ottawa Tim Hortons owners sold a record-breaking number of cookies, raising over $207,000, enough to keep over 4,100 children warm. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News
101.1 FM
and 1310 10 a.m.
And I'm here with mayoral candidate Bob Chiarelli. Morning, Bob Chiarelli. Welcome back.
Morning. Thank you for having me on.
You are asking Ontario's Municipal Affairs Minister to postpone approving the city's official plan. Why?
Well, there's a little bit of history, if you'll bear with me for a moment or two.
Sure. Yep.
That huge tract of land was purchased and owned by the province itself since 1972.
Talking about the Taywin lands.
It was the Taywin lands.
Yeah.
And it was in the Bill Davis era. And not surprisingly, it was purchased by the province, as well as some other large land banks around Toronto, to be developed for housing, because there was a shortage of housing. The land was never developed for housing because the land is unsuitable for development. Now, what's happened now is the issue has come to council. They were dealing with the official plan, particularly about lands that would be made available for housing. So there are two parcels of land which are in question. There's the Taywin lands, about 445 hectares, are 7 to 10 years out from development. No proximity to transit. The condition of the land is not suitable for building housing. No proximity to services, because if they're going to approve lands to go forward for housing, it's got to be close to services that they could attach to. Otherwise, it becomes too expensive. Absolutely no public participation in a decision. Now, when this was coming to council, it came in competition, if I can use that term, with two parcels of land, large parcels of land, Canada North and West Carleton lands. They have services to connect within range of transit. The city planning staff unanimously recommended the Canada and West Carleton lands to proceed before the Taywin lands. And while all this was going on, the Ministry of Housing at Queen's Park sent a letter, you might recall, to the city identifying reasons that gave them concern. Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs. Basically, the development would be impeded by the condition of the lands. The fact that there was no transit close by that they could attach to in the foreseeable future, no services within practical range, and as I said earlier, soil conditions.
And when you, sorry, Bob, when you say services, what kind of services are you?
We're talking about water, sewer, sewage lines.
Right.
All those urban
infrastructure, the infrastructure.
The structures, yes.
Okay, right, okay. Continue,
now,
please. Yeah, go ahead.
The Taywin motion at council, I would say, was mildly, I use that term mildly, undemocratic. It was walked onto the floor of council without notice, zero public consultation. Mayor Watson promoted it as reconciliation with First Nations.
Yes, he did, yeah.
And the leaders from the Algonquin Nation rejected the land deal as being, rejected it as being reconciliation. Now, I just have a couple of quotes.
Well, I mean, some did and some didn't. I mean, you know.
Let me quote you.
I mean, it has support in Pikwaganagon. It doesn't in Kitigan-Zibi, for example. So
Algonquin elder Claudette Commanda.
Right, from Kitigan-Zibi on the Quebec side.
Also, now the Chancellor of the University of Ottawa says, quote,
right. Yeah.
He was shocked and insulted to hear Mayor Jim Watson characterize the land deal with the Algonquins of Ontario and its partner Taggart as reconciliation. She also said the Taywin development is not reconciliation because that process must take place between two nations, not with a municipal government and a company.
Okay, all right, yeah, but
kind of the background.
Yeah, I mean that's one Algonquin elder, but then if you go to Chief Wendy Jocko up in Pikwaganagon, she'll tell you a completely different story, Bob. So. You know,
yes,
it gets complicated, right?
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
Question about that.
Yeah. Okay. We need houses. We have a housing shortage. You would agree that part of the reason why housing is getting out of touch and out of reach for a lot of people in Ottawa is because we're not building enough houses. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Premise? Okay.
Absolutely.
So here's a plan that would build, that would see basically a whole new community out by the Amazon distribution center out there, right?
It would
thousands and thousands and thousands of units of housing.
It was out of touch with services. It was out of touch with transit. The lands were very, very difficult to build buildings on. If you talk to any developer in the city, they will tell you that that place, as Bill Davis found out when he bought the land, was not suitable for development. So here's the problem.
So if we're not going to build the houses there, where are we going to build them?
Well, a decision was made at council, and that decision basically talked about choices that had to be made. And let me let you know that the planning staff absolutely opposed the lands in Teewin, the far east lands.
Yeah.
And they had a choice to make between lands in Canada North and West Carleton lands, which had proximity to transit that could come to that area. The water and sewer services were very, very close. They could hook into it. And when they looked at the Teewin lands, they were miles away from services of any type whatsoever. And so if you're looking at how many new houses are we going to be able to get out there because there's a big need for it, you're going to find that the houses will not become available soon enough on the Teewin lands because they're too far out, it's too difficult to build, which has been defined that way by many, many developers and technical people. On the other hand, you have the lands in Canada North and West Carleton where they can hook in and probably within a year and a half have new houses coming out.
Yeah.
As opposed to they counted.
Right. And in fact, I think they were taking land out of the urban boundary in Canada North and West Carleton and putting it into the urban boundary in that area, if I'm not mistaken.
And they were delaying houses by doing that.
Okay.
They were absolutely delaying a significant number of new homes by doing that. And the other issue is a democratic issue, which I alluded to.
Yeah.
And that is the manner in which it was, I would use the term ram through at council, surprising people, not notifying people ahead of time, and having it being labeled as
reconciliation. Yeah.
Which it wasn't. And,
okay.
And there was
so you think it should be up to the new mayor and council to have another look at this then?
Well, yes. And so you had this rush and surprise council meeting where it was voted without proper debate, I would suggest. And that's a problem. That's a real problem compared to when you have a new council where you're going to have a minimum of 10, maybe 12 or 13 new councillors who have not had the opportunity to study this and move it forward.
Okay.
So just my last point is to remind everyone that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing sent a letter to the City of Ottawa and raised these concerns about non-proximity of servicing, of not proximity or not even having a chance to bring transit there in the foreseeable future. They should have taken that as a warning. I think that letter was sent to the City of Ottawa as a warning about the Teewin lands.
All right. Let me ask you just something else on development. We haven't seen your housing platform. Are you coming out with a whole platform on housing? Or?
Yes.
Yes? When?
Very soon.
Very soon. Okay. You know, there's this designation R1 development.
Yes.
You know, if there's one dwelling there, now one residence, if you, say, tear it down, you can only build one residence there. There's a suggestion. I spoke to the Ottawa Home Builders Association. They're in favor of this, getting rid of that designation to promote intensification. So say if I had an old compo house, Bob, like a 3-bedroom compo house, that could be torn down and, say, a fourplex could go up. What do you think of that? Getting rid of R1, or is that something you're in favor of?
I would look at it from a perspective of a homeowner in an R1 zone. You're living in a single family home. They should have the right to stay there as a single family home for as long as they want. Okay. On the other hand, when you're looking at, let's say, a small developer acquiring 1, 2, or 3 residential properties, building the multiple units on it, I don't have any problem with that.
Okay.
I support intensification. I am concerned about the expanding the boundary for housing. Significantly concerned about it because we even have the former director of planning at the City of Ottawa saying there are enough housing opportunities in the city that we don't need to expand the border tremendously. It's a bit of an exception for the Canada North and West Carleton lands because they're so close to servicing that they were able to get through, or the staff in the planning department was able to recommend it, which they did recommend, and they were overvoted by the council.
Okay. Hey, one final thing on this day. With the funeral for the Queen is being held today. You were regional chair, you were mayor, you were MPP, cabinet minister. Did you ever, in all that time, did you ever get to meet the Queen?
Once. At an event. Yeah.
Do you remember when that was, or where it was, or?
Amazingly, it was at an event in Montreal. Okay. He was in Montreal, and it was open for people to come in. I guess people who are elected or have some stature. And I was able to get in there and had a few seconds with the Queen.
Wow. Okay.
So not here. I had tremendous interchange with the Governor General.
Okay.
But that one time with the Queen.
One time with the Queen. Just a few seconds.
Just a few seconds. Yeah.
When do you figure that was? Do you know? 80s, 90s?
I think it would have been 1996 or 7.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, look, Bob Chiarelli, always good to have you on. 35 days to go until Election Day.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Good,
and,
welcome back anytime. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah, Bob Chiarelli, running for mayor. 11:45. Be right back. David Sali will be back with us from the Ottawa Business Journal. He has lots of interesting stories. Carell, remember Carell? Yeah, they're back in the news. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The houseless crisis, because it really is a crisis down here on Rideau Street. There is not enough shelters for men especially, and we need to be helping our most vulnerable.
I'm Derek Fage, host of Daytime Ottawa, and I invite you to tune in to Daytime Monday to Friday to find out what's happening in your city. We'll introduce you to fabulous artists, authors, musicians, local business owners. We'll tell you about the fantastic festivals and charity events that are happening in the city. We'll give you tips on health and wellness, some fabulous recipes, and so much more. That's Daytime Ottawa right here on Rogers TV.
Putting the focus on smaller businesses and less larger sized businesses, as it's very different for people like me that are like literal small business owners, where we've bootstrapped money and we don't have a lot of funding, and to be able to help us through that. There has been some help for us, but I think it would be a greater opportunity to see us thrive through the next couple of years.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Next time on Simply Cooking by Chef, I'm sharing some of my Italian family secrets. Come join me and see what they are while I prepare a traditional Italian pork feast.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
David Sali is back with us from the Ottawa Business Journal for a look at some of the big local business news headlines. Good morning, David Sali.
Good morning, Rob.
Shopify's down again today. By the way, it's off slightly. $42 Canadian right now. 42.03 is the last trade. Shopify has lost the shares. I hate to be the bearer of bad news again. 78% so far this year. So it's been tough. It's been tough, but it's been brutal. I mean, the NASDAQ, which is very tech heavy, was down just 6% in a week last week. So, it's in very good company. That means that exactly. Shopify is changing how its staff can, allocate its compensation. How much of your compensation do you want to take in, say, a base salary? How much do you want as an equity preference, say, a stock option, for example? What do you know about that? Tell us a little bit more about that. What do you know? Flex comp, they're calling it.
Yeah, right, exactly. So Shopify, they've been talking about this for a while. We've known about this since this is obviously when things are going really well for tech companies, especially publicly traded firms like Shopify. One of the ways they kind of try and separate themselves and make, win that war for talent, so to speak, is offering stock options as a, significant part of the compensation package. So that's great when your stock is doubling year over year, like Shopify's was a couple of years ago. It's not so good when your stock has plummeted by more than 70% since the start of the year. Suddenly, that idea that you're getting the big chunk of your compensation is coming from stock options may not be the sort of enticing proposition it once was. So Shopify and other tech companies are doing it as well has decided, okay, it's going to give its workers more choice in how they're compensated. Do you want more cash, less equity, however you want to do it? So they've created they've actually built, Shopify has launched its own software for its employees called FlexComp. It was built by Shopify's developers. Okay. Apparently they've been working on this day and night for the past few months. It's been everybody was there. Even Toby Lukey himself, the CEO, was in the war room supervising the creation of this software because they want to get it right. They want this to be able to, make it easy for employees to kind of calculate the percentage of compensation they want in cash versus stock. So they've created this software. It's like a dashboard. You've got a window that summarizes your base salary, other options with the annual total. Then you've got another screen that has everything sort of divided into which delineate how much you've got in cash, you've got in stock, all of that sort of stuff, as well as there's other windows apparently for things like charitable donations and shop cash, which is a digital reward available to some of the customers. So there's all these different things, and they put them all in these windows to make it easy for employees to just look at, bang, okay, this is how much I've got in cash, this is how much I've got in shares, and then you can kind of sort of toggle. You can use the tool to just move zip up and down. Okay, I want it to be 70-30 or whatever, and move it up and down using your mouse and setting the ratio instantly on the software that way, and that, which is obviously designed to make it nice and simple for employees to set the ratio they want, and everybody can set their own individually. Now, there was some talk that, hey, maybe they'll actually start offering this new software to their customers as well, to their merchants as a licensed service. Apparently, Shopify is saying, well, there's room to keep modifying it, keep evolving it. Who knows in the future what will happen? Yeah. But for now, it's available for Shopify employees to use, and
it just makes me wonder, given that they built all this in house and how user friendly it looks to be, whether that's going to become a solution that they pitch to other businesses. Who knows?
Well, I think it very well could be.
Looks like it.
They'll kind of use this as the Shopify employees are the guinea pigs, so to speak. And once they work out the bugs, then maybe this is another offering for them.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, Carleton news this week. Aludo. Carleton rebrands to Aludo. Aludo. Okay.
Exactly, right. Rob. We've known Carleton, of course, back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
You remember. Carleton kind of, it was in many ways, it was the symbol of Ottawa.
It was it.
It was,
right?
When Silicon Valley North had its swagger, there was Mike Copeland in the news every day, and we know about his house and all of that, and it became, so it was this shining symbol of Silicon Valley North, and of course it kind of also symbolized the somewhat decline of Silicon Valley North over the years as well.
Yeah. Or the boom and bust nature of Silicon Valley North.
Exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, Carleton's still around, and over the years it's actually moved beyond just Corel Draw and WordPerfect, which is what a lot of people would know it for. It was acquired itself a few years ago by a big American private equity firm, and it has been on an acquisition spree of its own. It's bought a bunch of different companies to kind of expand its offerings. For instance, it now offers this, it's called the Parallel suite of products, which allow Mac users to run Windows apps on Mac devices. It's got product management software. It's got all, you name it, it's got it. So it's no longer a graphic design company and word processing company. So it's decided it's time for a rebrand. So it is now rebranded itself as Aludo. That's ALLUDO.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, so it's pronounced Aludo, but the identity is it powers all you do.
All you do. I see. Okay. Very clever. Very clever. Okay. All right. Kind of sounds like a Ricky Martin song, too. So, Aludo. Aludo. Okay. All you do. All you do. Okay. All right. I mean, how would you describe their local presence? I mean, is it a few dozen employees in Ottawa now? A few hundred? Thousands?
It's a bit hard to tell, Rob.
Hard to tell.
They don't break it down anymore, but they still have hundreds of employees. But
okay.
But they still have a significant presence here in Ottawa. A lot of those are still here, but they are a much more geographically diverse company. Let's put it that way now.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah.
It's really interesting. The ongoing evolution of what used to be the software company formerly known as Carleton. Okay. Very interesting stuff this week, David Sali. As always, thank you so much for joining us from obj.ca.
You're welcome, Rob.
Yeah, from the Ottawa Business Journal. That's David Sali. ongoing coverage and continuing with our multi-platform coverage here on City News on the funeral for Queen Elizabeth II is coming up right after the noon news with my colleague Sam LaPrade here on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Tune in weekdays starting at 9 on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.